What's going on, everybody? It's your man Louie T here with a brand new installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Hope you are good wherever you are and taking this in. Number of topics to get to today. One quarterback battle has left to be decided. I think I know what the Patriots are ultimately going to do, but we'll talk about that after Drake May's performance last night to wrap up the preseason. Talk about these young quarterbacks and what we can look forward to this year. Also, CeeDee Lamb, as expected, gets his bread. I think we all predicted that this would happen. Um, so we'll talk about where he lands in the pantheon of NFL wide receivers and overall in the league with his massive payday. NFL cuts starting to take place. Rosters have to be trimmed down to 53 men by tomorrow at 4 p.m. So some names have been cut thus far, and others are being shopped as we speak. So we'll start to touch on some of that as well and other topics here on the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 442nd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Of course, I'm your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I have an omission to make. I will save that for the next podcast episode, though. When I have a little bit more time on my hands. Don't let me forget. But we will come back to that. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have another installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Schedules filling up very rapidly this week. A lot of different things going on, being pulled in a number of different directions. So we'll see what ultimately happens. But I will try to remember to tell you guys the story and make sure I don't forget. But number of topics I want to get to today, and time is not on my side. So without any further ado, let's jump into the proceedings. Before we do that, I do have to say, rest in peace to CeeDee, otherwise known as, more commonly known as to wrestling fans, Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, or Psycho Sid. I know I'm getting old because all of my wrestling heroes and all the guys that I emulated at home when they used to tell us, don't try this at home, are dropping like flies. And apparently he was battling cancer. He just passed at the age of 63, according to his son. He was one of my favorite guys to emulate because he genuinely made me feel like he was crazy. He would blink all the time, and he would always talk in this low voice, and he would be like, I am the master and the ruler of the world. Oh man, those were good times. And there's nothing like a good old-fashioned power bomb as a finisher, right? His felt like it hit just a little bit different. His felt like it just had a little bit more force behind it. Anyway, rest in peace to Sid. My favorite name of his was Psycho Sid, and that was my favorite character of his. So rest in peace, Sid. Rest in peace. Anyway, let's jump into the show today in the gym dropping session. Let me drop this gym on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, the young fellas they look like they're ready to go. Um, I've had a chance to watch pretty much every preseason snap taken by all of the first round quarterbacks. I've even, had a nice look at Spencer Rattler. He was on yesterday against the Titans. So I watched a little bit of him as well. And this is going to be a fun group of quarterbacks to watch this year for various reasons. Everyone's got their own kind of style of play and what they're going to be asked to do for their particular teams. Let's start with Caleb Williams. He was the unquestioned starting quarterback in Chicago upon being drafted. There was no controversy, there was no conversation, there was no battle or competition. When he was selected, he was given the keys, and we've watched, the journey through Hard Knocks as well, but he has been groomed for this moment to be in this position, to be the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears. They've surrounded him with tons of talent. He's got a solid offensive line, a quality running back that they added in free agency in DeAndre Swift. We know about all the receivers, DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, who they drafted, and Keenan Allen, who they traded for. So they are absolutely loaded. They've got a really good tight end as well. They have all the pieces there. Now it's just a matter of, can Caleb Williams get it done? One of the knocks you may have heard about him this preseason is, while he's made some wow plays, and he truly, really has, most of them have either come off script or outside of the pocket. His biggest play was the little flip toss to DeAndre Swift on a play that looked like it was dead on arrival. Somehow he gets it to Swift on a little flip. It felt really Mahomes-ish, like that was an off script kind of, backyard, hey, you take it type play. The throw to his tight end, oh man, I don't know why Cole Kmet. Golly, man. One of these days I'm gonna remember Cole Kmet's name. It's 4 letters, for Jesus. Crying out loud. My goodness. Cole Kmet. That was a thing of beauty. Rolling to his right, throwing back across his body and hitting Cole Kmet before he went out of bounds was just crazy. And then the throw against Cincinnati, that throw was against Buffalo. The throw against Cincinnati, rolling to his left and throwing a dime to Rome Odunze, probably 35 yards down the field, over his outside shoulder. Can't really go up and place it any better than that throw was put in there. But that too was outside of the pocket, off schedule. A lot of the criticism of him, and this is one of the knocks we talked about with him, is can he play on time and on schedule in an NFL offense consistently? We know he can. Can he do it consistently? Haven't really seen that from him quite yet, but as time progresses, I would imagine that will develop. But we know that the playmaking ability is there. If you watch the touchdown run that he had, the scramble, it was ridiculous. So everything is there for Caleb Williams to become a superstar, and all he needs is consistency from the pocket. Jaden Daniels, the number 2 overall pick, there wasn't much question as to whether he would be the starter, but there was a pseudo competition that actually took place between he and Marcus Mariota. But even the head coach, Dan Quinn, said very early in the process, look, we know what the end game is, okay? It's not a secret what's going on here and what we're trying to have happen. We just want there to be competition. That's what we preach. That's what we're about. And we want him to go out and earn it. And so Jaden Daniels did exactly that in 2 preseason performances. He was really good. 12 of 15, if I'm not mistaken, in the preseason. 100 and let's call it 25 yards or so passing. I think 121 yards passing, and no touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. Showcased the wheels a little bit. Was very accurate within the pocket. A lot of quick game, right? A lot of getting the ball out of his hands, which is what you like to see from a young quarterback, especially one with an offensive line that you may have questions about. So he looked really good. He looked poised. He had a play where he changed the call at the line of scrimmage after seeing what the defense was presenting to him, threw a deep ball, a dime, 40 yards down the field to De'Ami Brown. And that ultimately helped uh, lead to the rushing touchdown that he had against the Jets. So a lot of excitement surrounding him as well. The biggest knock on him is his size. All I keep hearing people talk about is, I don't know if he's going to last. And I don't know. I don't know if it's just me or not. I'm not really concerned about his size. I think people are making it a big deal. He's been this size in high school and in college. And I get it. The NFL is a different beast than high school and college. I'm fully aware. But I think he'll be just fine. Now, I would like him to learn how to slide, which clearly he does not know how to do. And I put the onus on the team to teach him how to slide. And it does not seem like they're very interested in showing him how to get that done. But I think that's something that they do need to explore with him. But outside of that, I think everyone is very excited about the prospects of Jaden Daniels taking um, the quarterback position by storm in Washington, something that has been long overdue for that organization for a very, very long time. How about the number 3 overall pick in the draft, Drake May? The one quarterback situation that has not been resolved to this point resides in New England with the Patriots and Drake May and uh, veteran quarterback Jacoby Brissett. Now, um, there are layers to this if you're a Patriots fan, because someone like myself who's on the outside looking in, I just would prefer that they throw Drake May out there. Let's see what the young kid has. I mean, you got nothing to lose, essentially. And that's easy for me to say. I'm not the one that invested the number 3 overall pick in him. You want to make sure you do this the right way. They look like they may have some issues up front with the offensive line. You're not quite sure about the skill position guys. And, there's a lot of different moving parts there. They're not a very good team right now. Defensively, they'll be solid, but they're not going to be great. Offensively, there are going to be some issues. They're not going to score a bunch of points. They're not going to win a lot of games. And so you want to be careful about how you roll Drake May out there. On one hand, I'm like, look, there is nothing here with Jacoby Brissett. This team isn't good enough for you to throw a veteran out there and let's just see what happens. Let the young fella play from the jump. Let him take his lumps. Let him learn and grow, and let him go through what is going to be, for all intents and purposes, a year of learning, development, and growing by playing. Baptism by fire. Let's just see it. On the other hand, like Chris Collinsworth was talking about last night, the Patriots don't have the easiest start to the schedule. And if they come out a little ragged and they get beat up pretty good, and you've got Drake May out there and you start 1-4, there's nowhere else to go, right? At least if you get that same result with Jacoby Brissett, the fans are going to be like, hey, we want to see Drake May. And even if it doesn't get better, well, it was already bad with Jacoby Brissett, so who cares, right? People who don't understand the process, who just want to win on Sundays, they don't care who's out there. They just want the result. And some fans get it. They understand that, look, we're going to have to take our lumps. And others are like, look, this kid's not getting it done. And let's say you lose 2 out of those first 5 games because of Drake May's inaccuracy or, unwillingness to cut it loose or, making poor decisions as rookies tend to do. There could be this ground swelling for, hey, let's see what Jacoby can do. And you just don't want that. You want it in the opposite direction, where you start off the season with Jacoby. He goes out and he's mediocre because that's what he's been throughout his career. You lose 4 out of your first 5, and then you say, all right, let's give the kid the keys and let's just see what he's got. Right. And at that point, he can go out there without any fear of being benched or looking over his shoulder because maybe Jacoby's a better option. No, we already explored that option and he was basic. So I think I might lean towards that. I myself would prefer to see him out there week 1. Turn him loose. Let the youngins play. But and especially after watching him against Washington, he had a really solid showing against the Eagles the week before that really made that competition feel real. Because before that, it felt like it was a token competition, sort of like the Washington one, where you already knew what the result was going to be before we even got there. It felt like Jacoby Brissett's job the entire time. And then that game against the Eagles where he looked confident, they finally gave him opportunities to throw the football. He ran in that touchdown, and you just felt like, okay, there's kind of a little bit of a change here in how he's being perceived and how the players are perceiving him. And then I thought he looked good against Washington. Obviously, the opening drive was excellent, but he didn't have some of the success as the game progressed. But, penalties really undid a lot of the good doing that was taking place. He threw a touchdown pass way down the field after rolling out to his left, only to have it undone by a penalty. So a lot of the things that he did do well were masked by penalties and mistakes. There were fumbled snaps, things of that nature. But ultimately, when you watched him, he looked confident. He's never going to be pitcher-esque in terms of footwork and, throwing on proper platform and things of that nature. Last night, even, he was throwing a football. His feet weren't facing his target. It was awkward looking, but it was effective. That's who he is. And when you have those types of mechanics and you do those types of things, there was a ball on a shallow cross that got away from him, and luckily there was no defender around to pick off the errant pass. That thing didn't just, miss the receiver by, a few yards or a yard or a few feet. That thing missed the receiver by like 4 yards over his head. And luckily there was no defensive player in the vicinity to catch an overthrow because it was not even close. And it's even to the point where Chris Collinsworth went, whoa, like it caught him off guard because he was, throwing the football so accurately up until that point. And that's Drake May. That's who he's going to be. Every now and again, one's going to get away from him because the mechanics aren't the cleanest, but it doesn't stop him from being productive. And you saw that there were times where he was under duress getting hit and that ball still came out and got to its intended target. So I think that it's an interesting discussion. My guess right now, if I had to guess, if I were a betting man, I'd put my money on the Patriots starting Jacoby Brissett week 1. I don't think they want to rush this process. There's this, I told you there are layers to this, and I think there are some in that organization that think they ruined Mac Jones. And it wasn't because they played him too quickly. It was just because of the tactics that they took. Everyone could see, we talked about this on this podcast last year, everyone could see the writing on the wall as to how last year was going to go offensively. When you had Matt Patricia and Joe Judge and all kinds of guys that have no expertise as offensive coordinators calling plays, you could see that had doom written all over it, gloom and doom. And it did. And so I think there's a little bit of apprehension to just roll him out because of how Mac Jones was handled in New England. So I think there are layers to that situation that's going to ultimately, I think, lead to the Patriots leaning on Jacoby Brissett early and then allowing Drake May to take over later. But whatever the case may be, we're going to see Drake May at some point this season. And I think the kid has a chance to be really, really good. We won't see Michael Penix this year if everything goes according to plan in Atlanta. Unfortunately, J.J. McCarthy sustained the meniscus injury. His season is done. That's unfortunate because I think there was an outside shot that he could have won that job and wrestled it away from Sam Darnold. It kind of felt a lot like the competition in New England, that it was predetermined early, but it felt like, just like in New England, Brissett hasn't been all that impressive, and Drake May started to come on. I kind of felt that could have happened in Minnesota after that first preseason game with the pressure that McCarthy was applying. It was only a matter of time before Sam Darnold started to see ghosts. And McCarthy came and took that job from him. And I wouldn't have been shocked if he would have gotten that done within 3 preseason games, but we never got to find out. And so he won't be participating this year. But then there's Bo Nix. And of the 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round, the 4 that I said I thought could be week 1 starters were McCarthy, Nix, Williams, and Daniels. So right now, 3 out of the 4 came to fruition. Obviously, McCarthy getting injured derailed that opportunity, but we still are getting 4 potentially if Drake May can somehow get the nod in New England. But we've got 3 for sure with Bo Nix. And I told you guys there was no better fit in terms of rookie quarterback and system than Bo Nix in Denver. He's Drew Brees light. And so he's going to go in there. He's not going to wow you with his legs. Although I told you in that Colts game early on, he did show some mobility. I thought he continued that in the Green Bay game where he played really well. And I think that was the game that really won Sean Payton over and made him say, okay, he's going to not only give us the best chance to win, but he's the future. And, why not start it now? This he's played more than enough college football. It's not a lack of experience here. Same thing with Jaden Daniels, right? Where you get these guys who have played tons of college ball. There's no excuse as far as, hey, they're not ready. No. That's an excuse you can use for Drake May, who's not even 22 years old yet, who hasn't played a lot of college football. You can use that excuse for him. That's not same thing with JJ McCarthy if you didn't want to start him. He hasn't played a ton of football, you can't use that excuse for Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix. They've played plenty of football for multiple universities. And so it was only fitting that the opportunity presented itself for Bo Nix. And he took full advantage, as I expected him to, in a system that I think is very friendly to his skill sets. And now he's going to get an opportunity to be the first rookie quarterback to start week 1 for the Denver Broncos since John Elway. That is a very, very prestigious honor. Let's see how he lives up to the expectations now that will be placed on him. There's been some bad quarterbacking going on in Denver here of late. And, they really haven't had any solid quarterbacking, good quarterbacking since Peyton Manning, and not the Peyton Manning that won the Super Bowl in 2015. He was awful, right? We're talking 2014 and 2013 Peyton Manning, who was still playing at a ridiculously high level. That's the last time we saw competent quarterbacking in Denver, which is why if I'm not mistaken, the Broncos have not been back to the playoffs since 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And it's really been directly linked and tied to their inability to find the answer at the quarterback position. So looking forward to seeing these young guys. One little note that I will add to this, there was another quarterback competition going on simultaneously with some of the younger guys trying to win jobs. That was out in Vegas with the Raiders. We hadn't spoken since head coach Antonio Pierce made that decision, but he ultimately went with Gardner Minshew, which I think a lot of us expected because of the contract. And even though it's not like Gardner Minshew signed this massive deal that automatically made him the starter, but it was for good fringe, bridge quarterback starting money, right? It was that kind of money that you expected him to get the nod, and he got it. I can't say that he absolutely earned it. I actually thought that Aiden O'Connell did some really good things. Unfortunately for Aiden O'Connell, he threw a bad pick 6 in the deciding game. And I think that might have tipped the scales in the favor of Gardner Minshew, who statistically was not great this preseason, but that's Gardner Minshew, right? You take the good with the bad, but he's going to give you a shot. And with a veteran team, I think they want the guy that gives them a shot, and Minshew does that. But I thought truly Aiden O'Connell outplayed him this preseason, and it's unfortunate that the young fella won't get an opportunity in his second season to be the guy. But he may ultimately play. I mean, it's still Gardner Minshew. Minshew's been known to, get injured here and there, and also be sporadic from a play standpoint. So you never know what'll happen this season. But right now, it's Gardner Minshew's job in Vegas with the Raiders. So I'm ready to see the youngins turned loose, and it's going to be a fun season, kind of tracking their progress, how they're doing, and keeping an eye on offensive rookie of the year, because you got to think it's going to come from this group of four. Even with all these dynamic receivers that were drafted in the first round, Roma Dunze, excuse me, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Malik Neighbors and so forth. You got to think that the rookie of the year is going to come from this group of three, possibly four quarterbacks, depending on if Drake May gets the nod. But generally, rookie of the year is a quarterback award because they touch it more. They're the most impactful. So if you've got this many young quarterbacks playing, that's how a quarterback wins the award this early, right? We've seen in the past couple of years where receivers had won prior to CJ Stroud getting it last year. I think it was Garrett Wilson the year before that, and I think the year before that it might have been a receiver as well, because we just didn't have the quarterbacks, right? When you have a quarterback playing, generally this offensive rookie of the year award goes to a QB. We've got three right now, possibly upwards of four seeing the field come week one. One of these three, maybe a fourth, obviously depending on health, will probably end up being the offensive rookie of the year. So it's going to be fun to watch these guys get it on this season. So let's get to social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. Y'all know what it is. Shout out to everybody that's in the comment section right now. All 192 of you. If you have not hit the like button for this video, please do so. Only 45 likes, despite almost 200 of you out there watching currently right now. So if you have not hit the like button, please help the kid out and do so right now. Also, if you're out there and you want your comment to be read, super chats are the way to do so. That'll help you jump straight to the front of the line and ensure that your comment is read and reacted to on the air. For everyone else, time permitting, and time is not on our side today, as I mentioned at the top of the show, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. And again, time permits. So I'm going to start off social media maneuvers with a couple of tweets we're going to read that are pertinent for today. Obviously, big news of today: CeeDee Lamb. Again, this was very much expected. I literally said I expect CeeDee Lamb to get this thing done this week. I thought it would be later on in the week, not first thing this week. But either way, I think everyone kind of forecast this coming. The Cowboys, and this is from Ian Rappaport earlier in the day. The Cowboys and all-pro wide receiver CeeDee Lamb agree on a massive 4-year extension worth $136 million per him and Tom Pelissero. Lamb gets $100 million guaranteed and a wide receiver record $38 million signing bonus in the deal. And he's now the second highest paid, non-QB in NFL history, behind Justin Jefferson. So he falls right in behind Jefferson. I think Jefferson is at 36 a year, and I think he's at like 30, or Jefferson's at 35 a year, and CeeDee's at like 34 a year. So he right where he needed to be, behind Jefferson. No one should exceed him this offseason. Somebody will probably next offseason, but it's big money for a big play receiver who has been outstanding in his young NFL career. And so all is right in Dallas now. No one else is getting an extension. Dak's not getting one this offseason before the season starts, and neither is Micah Parsons. They'll deal with Parsons next year. This is what the Cowboys have always done with their guys, is they wait to the last minute. That's their move. I don't think they understand that it costs more when you wait, but if that's how they want to handle business, um, by all means, please continue conducting business as usual. So Lamb gets paid. He's now the 11th wide receiver this offseason to get broken off. So you know that position has seen a massive bump. And so that's also going to be good for the franchise tag moving forward, which is why when I had a conversation with someone the other day that said, well, the Bengals can franchise tag T. Higgins again. I'm like, they can, theoretically speaking, absolutely. It's going to be pricey. That tag number is going up every time another receiver enters the top 5 as now the new highest this or the new highest that. That number goes up. So it's going to become increasingly harder to franchise a receiver a second time. The first time, you know what you're getting yourself into. The second time, highly unlikely. So yes, they theoretically could franchise tag him again. It's not going to be a smart move on their part. They're not going to look to invest that kind of money in one player for 1 year. So CeeDee or T. Higgins, more likely than not, will be a free agent next offseason. Anyway, still nothing with Brandon Ayuk. No news out of San Francisco. That continues to be a story worth monitoring. I still think something gets done with him in the 49ers prior to the season. As I always said, deadline spur action, and that is never more the case than with the 49ers. And we've seen their history of getting deals done with prominent players very close to the season. This one feels no different. So my guess is Brandon Ayuk will get something done with the 49ers in the coming days prior to the season getting underway. Let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. Got a super chat here from my guy, JP. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. John Perez writes, Lou, I don't know if you saw, but Tim Patrick and John Mechie could be available. Could AP get one of or both of those guys? We're going to talk about Tim Patrick here briefly. John Mechie, I was really excited about him coming out of Alabama, but the whole cancer thing that he dealt with, and he just hasn't been what I thought he was going to be. So I'm not interested in John Mechie, but Tim Patrick is. I told you guys about Tim Patrick last night. Like I had already kind of let you know. I had watched the Broncos preseason game, so I was listening to what they were saying about some of those Broncos receivers, and Tim Patrick's name came up, and I'd watched him in the preseason, and he looks good, but he's been away for 2 years, and there are other guys that Sean Payton, again, this is not a Sean Payton guy. And so he hasn't been there, out of sight, out of mind. And it's a great story, but Payton's ready to move on. And so I wouldn't mind some Tim Patrick. I've been, you guys know, I've been a long Tim Patrick fan prior to the injuries. I don't think I'm interested in trading for him because they're going to cut him. Which is why I'm second on the waiver. If I'm the Commanders, I'm not trading for anybody. The only reason I was willing to give up anything for the kicker is because I wanted him to kick in the preseason game. And in order to get him, I had to give up a conditional 7th round pick so he could kick in the game and I could feel confident about him going into week 1. Everybody else, I'm second on the waiver claim. If Carolina gets to him first, so be it. But I'm not giving you anything for a guy that you're ultimately going to cut. So if somebody else wants to trade for Tim Patrick, knock yourself out. Somebody else wants to trade for John Mechie or any other receiver that's out there or any other player that may be dangled out there, have at it. I'll wait because if you cut him, I have a 98% chance of getting that guy if I want him, if you're a Commanders fan, right? The other 2% lies with the Carolina Panthers who are in front of us. If they don't want him, then we have next dibs. So I wouldn't be too aggressive in trying to pursue any of these guys that teams are dangling. You dangle a receiver out there because you're willing to cut him. You're going to cut him. B-Rad, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. B-Rad writes, I feel for Terry. He's not getting it anywhere near the top wide receiver money. But see, this is the thing. When Terry got his deal, it was really good money for where the market was and where he is as a receiver. Terry will be up for an extension next year. Don't feel bad for him. If Terry balls out this year and shows why he deserves to be paid, they'll pay him next year. So, it's all about, can Terry, like, look, it's cool to have 1,000 yards 4 years in a row. And they always put him in those lists. And it's great to see Terry get that kind of acknowledgement, because it's easy to fall into the trap of kind of dismissing Terry because of his situation with all the quarterbacks, with the team not being very good. It's easy to dismiss Terry McLaurin, but ultimately he still has to have that signature season. And we could sit here and talk about quarterbacks. I know guys that have had big seasons despite their quarterback situation. He still needs to go out and have one of those seasons where you go, hey, you need to put some respect on Terry McLaurin's name and put him in that conversation with the best of the best in this league. We came up with the list and we had him somewhere in that 12 to 15 range. That's where he belongs. And there are probably 2 or 3 more receivers that I would have put ahead of him that weren't even on that list that we talked about. So he needs that signature season. He needs that year where we go, there's no denying him now. He just put up 1,437 yards and 9 touchdowns. You got to pay attention to him now, right? Hopefully that season is coming here in the very near future, whether this year, next year, or the year after. Because again, at some point, he'll no longer be in his prime. I still think he's got a good 2 to 3 years of prime McLaurin left. So it's got to get done here in the near future if it's going to happen, right? So stand up, Stephen Taylor. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show Stephen some love, welcome him with open arms, and let him know what it's like to be a member of the mob. Stephen Taylor, welcome to the squad. So glad to have you on board. Let's get to the comment section real quick and knock down a few of these comments. Let's see what we got. See if there's anything in here that is that real? Malik Willis to the Packers? Is that a real thing? That would actually be a good move for the Packers, because I don't think Malik Willis was in their plans, the Titans' plans. And I don't know if the Packers have a legitimate backup quarterback, but his skill set kind of fits a lot of what Jordan Love does. He's nowhere near as good as Jordan Love, but you want a guy that has a similar skill set. So that one makes a lot of sense. Makes a ton of sense. John Wynn says, I was high on Joey Sly because I thought he was going to make those 60-plus attempts twice in a row, but he kept missing them. He's got a big leg, and sometimes with big leg kickers, you fall into that trap of throwing them out there at random points of the game for these ridiculously long field goals just because they can. But it's not always the best thing to do because you're messing with the mechanics when you do that. Like, he kicked a line drive on the first one that was 64 yards, and it was no good. And then the 60-yarder, again, had the distance and just didn't have the accuracy. And you don't want to throw off his mechanics, having him kick these ridiculous. It's good to know that he has the distance, but accuracy is just as important. If you don't have the accuracy, what good is the distance? If you don't have you can have the accuracy and not have the distance. You got to have both. So he's capable, man. He's a capable kicker, but understand that he's Joey Sly. And he's going to miss some kicks that he has no business missing. And that's part of the reason that I don't think they decided to bring him back in Washington. Let's see. Todd Labor writes, hey, Louie, how are you? What's going on, Todd? I'm doing well. How about yourself? Says, I liked Trace McSorley's play last night, and he looked really good. Do you think he'll be on the practice squad? Driscoll not going to make it. He tried. He'll find a team. I don't think Trace McSorley is going to be here, no. And he's not better than Jeff Driscoll. And Driscoll has played really well this preseason. And the 2 quarterbacks, because I think they're only keeping 2 on the practice squad, will be Jeff Driscoll as your veteran. And then the young guy that you develop and you hope he's ready to be your backup next year is Sam Hartman, right? So that's kind of how they're going to go about this process. continue to develop Sam Hartman because you want him to be your long-term backup behind Jaden Daniels, because you're not bringing Marcus Mariota back next year. He was a bridge, and essentially not even a bridge. He was more of a mentor to Jaden. And so next year, just like Jacoby Brissett was supposed to be to Sam Howell last year, Marcus Mariota is to Jaden Daniels this year. So it's a 1-year deal. He's out of here next year. And you hope Sam Hartman is ready to take over as the backup next year. So, no, I don't see a place anywhere on the roster for Trace McSorley. It was a cool game he played last night, though. Let's go to Swaggy P, then we'll get to Chippa. Swaggy P, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Swaggy P writes, don't know if you saw the Jerry Jones quote, but he's off his meds again. Yeah, I saw it, about nobody can do the job that he does in terms of being the GM, and nobody's better at it than him, and this, that, and yeah. We already said he's starting to get senile. Just let Jerry rock. I'm protecting Jerry at all costs. Whatever he needs, if he needs a egg McMuffin with extra syrup, I'm gonna get it for him. Like, whatever he needs, I'm gonna provide that for him, because we got to protect Jerry at all costs at this point. He is a national treasure, and I'm gonna make sure that he remains here as long as humanly possible. So yes, I heard the quotes, and I could do nothing but chuckle. Chippa, thank you for being a member for 9 months. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, does JD have a day in the wide receivers, have a say, I'm assuming, in the wide receivers that we keep? No. He's a rookie. He gets no say in anything right now. You got to get to veteran status, and you've got to be like this integral part of the success of the team to have say so. You really need to get to Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, that kind. I mean, Mahomes probably has a little bit of say so in Kansas City, but he's Patrick Mahomes, right? No one's done what he's done in this amount of time, this early in their career. So I would say you got to be on par with those type of guys to have a say so in what happens. Like Caleb Williams, they're not talking to Caleb Williams about what's being done in the front office. They're not consulting with him to, hey, should we go get, this guy? They're not asking Caleb Williams that. And he's got, probably the most, and I want to use the term power loosely, because he doesn't have really any power, but he's probably got the most leverage of any of these quarterbacks. They bent over backwards to kind of make him feel comfortable, did the Bears. So there's no way JD has any say so, and I don't think he wants that, right? He's a young guy. He wants to come in and prove himself to these veterans. The worst thing you could do with that's what RG3 had his rookie season, was he had a little bit too much power, too much access to the owner. That stuff rubbed people the wrong way. You don't want that, right? So let's see. I think we were right around here. And Ravi Ray says, don't be surprised Broncos might cut Tim Patrick, 30 years old, 6'4" wide receiver, looking to trade him. Already cut Perine after trying to trade him. Tim hasn't been the same since the knee injury. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and transition to garbage time. And in garbage time, since everybody's bringing up Tim Patrick, we were going to talk about him. There has been some activity. I talked about cuts, and some of the cuts that have been made to this point. And Tim Patrick, and this is from my guy Ari, on X at My Sports Update, had him on the channel maybe a month ago. This is what he does. He says, a surprise, which it wasn't a surprise to me, because I watched that preseason game yesterday, and they had talked about Tim Patrick and a few of the other receivers that may, find themselves looking for work. And he says, the Broncos are expected to move on from wide receiver Tim Patrick and are looking at trade possibilities, per Mike Kellis 9 News. Um, Patrick had a great preseason and is returning from back-to-back years of significant injuries. Didn't expect that. I did expect them to move on from him. Just reading the tea leaves in Denver, he did have a really good preseason. He finally broke through and scored a touchdown. And you should have seen the way that his teammates embraced him after that touchdown. You could tell that they've seen the struggle. They've seen, the pain that this man has gone through over the last 2 years. And they were really, truly excited for him. And I think ultimately he will be elsewhere. And the question is where? I don't think anyone's going to trade for him. I think they're going to have to cut him. And at that point, we'll see if anybody is interested. I know myself as a Commanders fan, I am definitely interested in Tim Patrick. I said it last night after the last preseason game. I literally brought up Tim Patrick's name. So this is not a surprise to me. It's just a matter of if someone else is willing to give them anything for him. And if not, is Carolina interested? Because if they're not, I am. And maybe the Commanders aren't interested in Tim Patrick. Again, we'll see. They may say, you know what, we rather roll with Martavis Bryant. We might as well roll with the guy that's already here. So who knows? Some other interesting moves that were made from a roster cut standpoint. This is also from my guy Ari on X. The Bucs release wide receiver Sterling Shepard, the longtime New York Giant. That's really not a surprise to me. I thought his career was over once he got released by the Giants last year. The Lions released wide receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones. That's the one, more so than Tim Patrick, that sticks out like a sore thumb to me, because Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think, has talent, can play special teams, can return punts, has a bigger body and a bigger frame. That one is interesting to me right there. Obviously, along with Tim Patrick, too. Ravens released Russell Gage. Somebody had brought him up earlier in camp about him being a former Falcon there with Dan Quinn and having ties. I don't care. I'm not interested in Russell Gage, the former Buck and Falcon, cut by the Ravens. Matt Corral, quarterback, cut by the Vikings. He was just in the the USFL just a couple of years ago, was with the Panthers, drafted in the third round, I believe, in that awful 2022 draft for the quarterback position. Not a surprise there. Damian Wilson cut by the Cowboys at the linebacker position, and running back Matt Breida cut by the 49ers. So those are some notable names. There'll be more, right? At this time of the year, we're on the eve of rosters having to be trimmed down to 53. So like I said, keep your ears to the streets and your eyes wide open, because these cuts are going to be coming in fast and furious, and it's just getting started. And these names are just the tip of the iceberg. Let's get to a super chat here from Steven Taylor. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. And once again, welcome to the MOBB. Glad to have you on board. My guy Steven writes, "Sup, Lou? Sup, Steven?" Says, "Season can't get here fast enough." I'm just enjoying it. I'm just taking it all in, man. Do you think we're in a position to add another Pro Bowl level receiver next year? I'm high on Higgins like you. Yes, we are in a great position. We have so much flexibility, so much cap space. We got good draft capital after adding that additional third-round pick in the Jahan Dotson trade. We're not in as good of a position as we were last year, but we don't want to draft that high again, right? The goal is to start moving towards the back end of the first round, not towards the front. So obviously last year we had to struggle and suffer to get to what we ultimately got to, which was the number 2 overall pick. We don't want that again. We got our quarterback. Now let's stay away from the top of the draft. But having 4 picks in the top 100, having, the second most cap space in the NFL, and not having to pay a quarterback for at least the next 2 to 3 off seasons, depending on how Jaden Daniels plays, gives you a massive amount of flexibility to go out and spend and be aggressive to improve this roster. And so depending on how well Jaden plays in his rookie season will determine how aggressive Washington is next year. It's the same thing you saw from the Texans. I hate to keep bringing up the Texans when talking about Washington, but they've set such a great example of how things can be done if you expedite the process. They won big in CJ Stroud's rookie season, and that prompted them to go out and be aggressive and go for it this year. So they went out and traded for Stephon Diggs. They gave the contract extensions to the tight end and the receiver, and they went out and traded for Danielle Hunter. And they did all of those things to put themselves in a position. They traded for Joe Mixon. They're going for it, right? If Washington has some success and they realize that we've got our guy, they're going to be aggressive next year too. I expect them to be aggressive anyway. Either way, whether it's a big season that they overachieve in, or they do the thing that I think they're going to do, which is win, about 7 games or so. Whatever the case may be, they're going to be aggressive next year, I believe. The second year is when you really start to truly settle in and you get aggressive in building the roster and getting the guys that you believe can help you, turn this thing around. So, we'll see what happens next year for sure. Let's see. Take a couple more. Miss P says your guy Sammy Reyes was cut by the Vikings. I didn't even know he was on their roster. I thought he was done. I don't expect him to ever be what we thought he could be. I can't speak for you guys. I got so mesmerized by his, size, speed, all of the attributes but I failed to realize that he didn't have the movement skills to like, he wasn't Tony Gonzalez or Antonio Gates or Julius Thomas. He didn't have those types of movement skills, which is why he wasn't a great basketball player. And so it didn't translate over to the football field. So I didn't take that into consideration. I just got excited because I saw this 6'6" behemoth running a 4 or 5, whatever. And I was like, yo, he could be the next fill in the blank, former basketball player turned. And then Chris Cooley deflated my dreams immediately. He's like, yo, this dude doesn't have basketball movement skills. He's no Jordan Reed. He's no Julius Thomas. He's no Antonio Gates. He's no, Tony Gonzalez. He's not any of those guys. Hell, he's not even Mo Alley Cox at this point. So, yeah, I didn't even know he was on the roster, though. That's crazy. Mike Lowry says, who's this Keenan Isaac corner from the Bucks? I have no idea. Look, don't get so desperate that you're just picking out random dudes from out of nowhere, right? I have no idea who that is, but they're going to get guys that they feel like can come in and help. More likely than not, it'll be a veteran player. It won't be, unless it's a young guy that is a surprise cut that was a 4th or 5th round pick. Generally speaking, teams are able to hold on to their 6th and 7th round picks that they cut. Because if that guy got all the way to the 6th or the 7th round, it's because other teams didn't really value him. So it's not going to be very often you're going to see other teams around the league poaching, teams 6th and 7th round picks that got cut. They're trying to keep their own 6th and 7th round picks that that they ended up cutting themselves. So it's going to be a veteran, like the Tim Patricks of the world, like the Donovan Peoples-Jones, those kinds of players. I think it'll be somebody who has that kind of pedigree more so than some random. Sean writes, if the corners and DNs end up being average, what defensive position would you draft with our 1st round pick? Hard to say right now what we would do. I'm not even thinking about next year's draft. Like, that's the furthest thing from my mind, because we don't know what this season is going to bring and what this season is going to tell us we need in the 1st round. We might get to next year's draft after a season that was long and featured no consistency at tackle, and we may say, yo, we got to spend our 1st round pick on a left tackle. Like, we have no idea what the season is going to bring and what it's going to tell us and how it's going to speak to us. So I don't really like having those conversations. We are about to embark upon a brand new season. I'm really focused on that. So I can't really tell you what next year's draft is going to bring and what will be after right now. MCGB writes, after JMO and St. Brown, depth is very bad, and he was struggling really bad in camp, struggling on where to line up and playing into the preseason games. Wide receiver room that bad and still cut him. So that's his take on Donovan Peoples-Jones. He just wasn't what they thought, because he was actually really good in Cleveland. For him to get cut and, them not have a ton of depth, that means they were very unhappy with what he brought to the table, very disappointed, because I just expected him to be on that roster. That's a surprising cut. But when you frame it that way, maybe there's a reason. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. Let's get out of here. Appreciate y'all kicking it with the kid and chopping it up with me. Again, over 240, almost 250 of you out there, only 94 likes. We can do so much better. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so. If you're a Commanders fan, I will see you later. We will talk about some of the moves that have been made by teams around the league and how that may impact the Commanders. We will talk about the Josh Harris press conference from yesterday. We'll also talk about some interesting comments made by Dan Quinn after the game last night that I will bring into focus. So we will tie in all of those things tonight in our live stream. It should be a good one. Hopefully you can join me tonight at 9 o'clock. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You guys have a good one. Take care. Look forward to seeing you next time. And we should be having a podcast episode every single day this week. So I look forward to chopping it up with you guys all week long on this podcast as we start to make our season predictions for all of these divisions. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You guys have a good one. Take care.